Pirates have long fascinated the minds of men. Rebellious, adventurous, and free-spirited, they carved their own path in the world. After serving 10 years in the Navy, I took the plunge to write my own story. Since then, I've learned directly from some of the most savvy marketers in the game. My name is Ben Perry, and welcome to the Pirate Marketing Podcast. So I think part of having a podcast is allowing this to be a vehicle to openly think out loud. And I think it's also valuable not only for me to go back and review kind of where I was and the things that I was kind of up against, but also for you, the listener, to come back and listen to where I was, like, because ideally you're probably either you're listening to this or you're watching this on YouTube, either present day when I record this podcast within a week or two, or you found me and you're beginning to binge my content. And for whatever reason, you may or may not be inspired by what I'm doing and what I'm up to in the world. And there's a little bit of human curiosity as to, like, how did this person get here? Because what you often see is only the polished parts. You only see kind of the finished statue of David. But what most people don't see is Michelangelo looking at a block of marble and starting to chip away with his hammer and chisel. And everybody that is looking at Michelangelo with this block of marble is like, dude, what are you doing? This doesn't look like anything. It looks like crap, honestly. And only Michelangelo knows what the finished process is, what the finished product is going to be. And so for me, I know what my finished process is going to look like. I mean, I don't know what it's specifically going to look like, but I have a general in where I want to go. And let's just take, for example, being really good at my marketing, being an absolute savage at sales, and also being able to inspire people by my own example, but then also being able to lead others so I could help them solve the problems that I've already solved. So all of that means is, if you're listening to this and it's in the future, this is just a little bit of what it was like as I was finding my clarity. And I think that there's many times in life when people go through seasons of not knowing what you are about, not knowing what you want to do. I think that it's natural. But if you're in that situation where you find yourself either not inspired, or you feel like you don't have clarity about what it is that you really want to do, or you just don't really feel that oomph, right? Like, what am I here to do? What am I supposed to be doing? I don't have a clear path. And so these are things that I have been challenged with. And I want to use this particular episode to just share with you some of the lessons that I've learned, either through the questions that I've asked my own mentors, or through some of the reflections that I've had in being on this search for clarity. So the first thing I would say is I went to YouTube and I was just looking for motivation on YouTube, and I got hit with, those traditional YouTube inspiration things where they're yelling at you and they're basically telling you, get up, you got this. And for whatever reason, I just don't resonate with that right now. I don't really feel like I need to be yelled at. But there was a video from Brendan Burchard talking about clarity. And Brendan actually, he said a couple of things that really slapped. And it really made an impact on me, so much so that I added it into my folder of great quotes. So if you're unaware, I have a folder inside Evernote called Great Quotes. And as of the time of this recording, there's 557 quotes inside this thing. And I'm just collecting them. I'm sure one day I'm probably going to use these quotes inside of the book that I write, or one of the books that I write. Again, pointing to where I see my finished statue of David. Like, I know those are things that I will do. But here's the first thing that I got from Brendan Burchard. He said, you want more clarity than most people? Reflect more often than they do. And that was just so powerful. It hit me like a ton of bricks, because he was talking about his high performance like workbook. And he's talking about how like they measure kind of your daily progress, right? How are you feeling in these different areas, and rate yourself and reflect. And maybe this is something that you already know. Maybe what I'm saying isn't necessarily, setting off any, you're probably not hearing anything new. But what this could be is a good reminder of things that maybe you used to do, but you no longer are doing, or something happened and it just kind of fell off by the wayside. So if you're not reflecting on your days, if you're not reflecting on the level of clarity that you feel like you have, one of the things that he mentioned is like the days where you really feel on, the days where you really feel like, I am on fire, man. Jot that down and notice what is occurring in your life that might possibly be producing that positive emotion inside of you. Maybe it was because, you had a fresh haircut. Maybe it's because, you had a clean house or a clean car. Maybe it's because, you just got paid and there's, just the right amount of money that makes you feel safe inside of your bank account. Like whatever it is that really made you feel that way, write it down. And then the reason why you write it down is that you can go back and you can reference when you were really humming, right? When you really felt that clarity. So that's the first thing that really spoke to me from Brendan Burchard. But the second thing that he said, and this is really not really related to clarity that much, but just in maybe you're one of these people that you have been doing these things, but maybe you stopped and you just need somebody to remind you. I think that we all need reminders. But Brendan Burchard said something that I was like, damn, that also hits. And he goes, yeah, it's common sense. It's common sense to do the things that make you feel good. Like, duh, like I don't need to listen to a podcast to tell me that. But again, you're probably not hearing anything new. By very nature of you even listening to this podcast, you're somebody who does believe in themselves. You're somebody who is about improving yourself. You read books. You're all about, sharpening the saw, increasing your intellect, really practicing and training and being better. So again, you're probably not hearing anything new. This is just a reminder. And so it's common sense to do the things that make you feel good. But again, the thing that hit very hard from Brendan Burchard is he said, common sense is not always common practice. And I was like, damn, that is so true. Because I'm over here, like I know these things intellectually, but I've stopped doing them. And, Jim Rohn is famous for saying, if it's easy to do, it's easy not to do. And that's, I think, part of where I've got tripped up is these easy things to do have been easy for me not to do. And all it takes is just for a day to pass, then another day, then it's a week, then it's a month, then it's a quarter, then it's like a year. Like this is an avalanche if you don't do the simple things. And so part of what's helped me with clarity is doing a focus wheel. Now, if you're not familiar with what a focus wheel is, I learned this from my mentor who learned this from Abraham Hicks. But a focus wheel is essentially like what you do is you draw a circle, like a big circle inside of your journal. And then like a donut hole, you draw a smaller circle in the middle. And then you're going to draw a line from top to bottom, but you're not going to draw the line through the center circle. right? You're going to leave that blank. So you draw the line top to bottom and then draw a horizontal line. So you're basically like drawing a plus sign. Again, not drawing through the middle circle. Then you're going to turn it kind of diagonal and you're going to fill in again another plus sign where you're kind of like making 8 pizza slices, if you will. So now you have a big circle with a smaller circle that's in the middle and 8 different slices, if you will. And the focus wheel is all about you focusing on like the best feeling that you have about whatever topic it is that you want to feel better about. And so for me, I started to do this inside my own journal. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm about to show my journal right now. So you get an example. Maybe is this too bright? Might be a little too bright. We bring the brightness down so you can see this. There we go. So not that, this, right? So there's the circle and I want clarity, right? So I'm about to read what these 8 different things are that I wrote. Let me turn the light back on. I love this thing. The light that I have, this is the most baller thing, to be able to just use a remote to turn on and off the light and to be able to increase it by a stop or 2. It's baller. The Aperture 120 Mark D. Love it. So this focus wheel that I did on clarity, I started with the best thought that I could possibly have about clarity. I said, I believe that I've had clarity before. That's a good thought. Well, I'm not trying to force it. I'm just kind of easing into it. I believe that I've had clarity before. That's a good thought. So what's the next best thought or the best next thought? I have clarity, and this is something that I learned from my mentor. Clarity isn't necessarily a binary, like, oh, I have clarity, now I don't have clarity. Clarity is more like a spectrum, right? To where there's degrees of clarity. And it's really more about inching closer to the spectrum of having clarity rather than clarity being a bullseye. And so that was the next thing that I wrote inside of my focus wheel. I have clarity, that clarity is a spectrum and not a bullseye. The next thing I said is I have clarity knowing that running gives me endorphins, which make me feel great. Again, something that I know to do, but it's easy not to do. I mean, it's easy to do. It's also easy not to do. So I haven't been doing it. And I've been running this past week and I'm just like, oh my God, why did I stop running? So the next thing is I have clarity that working out and lifting heavy weights makes me feel amazing. Makes me feel fucking amazing. I love it. It's some of the best medicine in the world. In fact, I'm probably going to go work out right after this. The next thing I said is I have clarity that I could go close for a particular offer and make a particular amount of money. Like I know that I could go and do that. And I know that I have trust and faith and confidence in myself that like there's no doubt in my mind that I can go make a couple tens of thousands of dollars by going and closing for an offer. The next thing that I said is I said, I have clarity about how to conduct a sales call that could generate 10K, 20K, 50K plus. Right. So you notice how these things are like, they're getting more and more kind of the energy is kind of being turned up because I'm focusing on the positive aspects of clarity. So the next thing I said is I have clarity that doing focus wheels could change my internal state and perception of the world. And the last thing I wrote is I have clarity that breath work puts me in a Zen-like state. And it does. So breath work, running, lifting weights, and knowing that clarity is a spectrum and not a bullseye. These are things that have helped me to feel better about myself and feel better about me finding clarity, me taking an active like role in being able to do something about having more clarity. Because a lot of people could just kind of kick back and not really do much. You know, they could just kind of they accept life the way that it is, or they might feel like this is the way that it's always going to be. And I don't know why we as human beings kind of have this, but like we seem to be like, oh, this is it. This is how it's absolutely always going to be. And this can be both for the negative, but also for the positive, right? Like when things are going really well, we tend to have this human fallacy that things are always going to go well, that you're not going to get rocked by life. And usually something happens, right? The winters of your life are going to come. And if you just know this, then you can know that this too shall pass, and this is just a season. And that's the great thing about this, is that like, no matter where you're at, things are going to change. That's the only constant. So people think that when things are going really bad, that it's always going to be very bad. But if you look at your life and you look at your focus and what you're focused on, that determines the quality of your life. Actually, the standards determine your quality of life. But what we focus on will expand. What we focus on, we give our energy to, will grow, which is why what you appreciates. It literally gets bigger in your mind. And so if our perception of reality is really what creates our reality, because it's not reality by itself, it's the perception of reality, then that means that the external world does not have to change. And good news, thank God that other people don't have to change in order for us to feel good. So what really needs to happen, and I'm speaking to myself just as much as I'm sharing with you, is that I need to alter my focus, my internal perception, because by me changing, everything else will change. And by me changing and everything else changes, that allows me to have control of my life. No matter if I'm going through a tough time or if I'm going through a positive time or a time of, abundance and wealth and success. And, I've got to experience both sides, being in a place where finances are tight and also being in a place where money is not an issue at all. I go to restaurants and I don't look at the left side of the menu. Can't remember the last time I looked at the left side of the menu. Like it's great. But in order to have those experiences happen, it really requires you to go within and choose where you put your focus, because that's always under your control. So to kind of wrap this up, clarity is really about, at least from what I've experienced this time around, right? I might go through another period where I feel like I don't have any clarity and I'm trying to figure out what my next move is. But for me, in the ways that I've used to be able to get me going, to get into momentum, to feel inspired, is to start to do those simple daily practices of running, of breath work, of lifting weights, eating healthy, right? Like I've made a conscious effort to not totally eliminate gluten, but I'm trying to minimize the amount of gluten that I'm eating, because I just recognize that gluten really kind of messes with me. And there might come a day when I just don't eat gluten at all anymore. It certainly, had an impact on my body, but that's good to know. That's good to know. It's good to have that awareness that what I eat affects my emotions. In fact, I would argue that what people eat is probably responsible for 80% of what a person's, emotional baseline is. If you're eating Twinkies and pizza and donuts and, sodas, your emotions are probably all over the place. I know it's been true for me. But when I start to eat alternative things, right? Less processed foods. Oh, imagine that. I start to feel better. I start to not only feel better physically, but I also feel better with my endorphins, and I feel better with my mental clarity. And I feel like I'm in alignment and congruent to be able to show up to my podcast, to be able to show up for my clients, to be able to lead by example. And so that's what this episode is about, is, was there a time when, the captain didn't necessarily have his clarity nailed down? And yeah, that's exactly like, I'm a human being just like you. And hopefully, this episode inspires you. Or if you're in the future and you're binging these episodes, then great, fantastic. Here you go. You might know a completely different version of me than the one that you're watching right now, or the one that you're listening to right now. Because if there is one thing, one constant, I am always improving myself. I am always growing. It may be slow growth, but I'm always growing. I can guarantee you that. So that's my take on clarity. Get yourself to do a focus wheel. Know that, those who do more reflection have more clarity. And common sense doesn't necessarily mean that it's common practice. And do more focus wheels so that you focus your attention on the things that you really want to bring into your life. So I will dock the episode there. I appreciate you listening. I'm pretty soon, I think I might end up maybe sending you guys to a link. I've purposefully not put any marketing materials in these first 10 episodes because, hey man, I've been just trying to find my voice. Been trying to just, again, develop that clarity, kind of like a camera, right? Figuring out where the focus is at to make it clear so I can move forward and I can move forward fast. So that's what I got for you. Hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you on the next episode. Savi.